Welcome back. Today, we're diving into a topic that is, well, pretty mind-bending. It connects ancient scriptures with some seriously complex math. We're pulling our insights from a publication called the Logos Report, which puts forward a really wild claim. And it all boils down to this one huge question. What if the Bible's original text isn't just a collection of stories and laws, but actually has a hidden mathematical language embedded right into it? It's a massive theory, so let's take a look at the evidence they present. So you're probably asking, how is that even possible? Well, the whole idea hinges on a really unique feature of ancient languages, a feature where letters weren't just for making words, they were also for counting. This practice has a name. It's called Gematria. And let's be clear, this isn't some modern code that someone invented and applied to the text later on. Nope, it's something that was built right into some of these ancient languages from the get-go. Okay, so this slide really shows you the fundamental difference. For us, in modern English, the letter A is just, well, it's A. But in ancient Hebrew and Greek, the letters of the alphabet were also their number system. So the first letter, Aleph, was also the number 1. The second letter, Bet, was also the number 2, and so on. Now just think about what that means for a second. Every single word, every phrase, every sentence automatically had a built-in mathematical value from the very moment it was written down. All right, so that's the theory, but how do researchers actually use this? Let's turn to probably the most famous, the most foundational example in this entire field, the very first verse of the Bible. Genesis 1:1. For researchers who study this stuff, this isn't just where the story begins. They see it as the mathematical key that unlocks this whole hidden structure they believe is running through the text. So, when you take the 7 original Hebrew words of this verse and add up all their letter values using Gematria, you land on a very specific number, 2701. And for these researchers, 2701 isn't just a random sum. They believe it's a key that opens up a whole cascade of other patterns. Now, check out what they claim is the first big connection. As you can see here, a physicist named Scott Shannon apparently discovered something pretty fascinating. If you take a simple triangle and you draw 30 lines to slice up each side, the number of little individual regions you create inside that triangle is exactly 2,701. They argue this is a direct geometric link to the Bible's opening sentence. Okay, so starting from that one cornerstone example, the analysis gets a lot more complex. Researchers came up with a tool to hunt for patterns not just in one way, but across different numbering systems and even different languages. They call it the Tetraset. So what is a tetraset? Well, basically, it looks at a single phrase in 4 different ways. It calculates the value in both Hebrew and Greek. And for each language, it uses 2 systems, the standard value, which is what we've been talking about, and a simpler ordinal value, which is just the letters placed in the alphabet. So Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, and so on. This gives them 4 different numbers to play with for any given phrase. So when they run this tetraset method on that first verse, Genesis 1:1, this is what pops out. You see the 2 values for the original Hebrew and the 2 values for its Greek translation. Now, on their own, they're just numbers. But the real trick is what happens when you combine them. You add those 4 values together, and you get a grand total of 6612. Now, according to the report, this number is anything but random. They see it as another key, one that connects Genesis to other parts of the Bible. The first link the report highlights is that this total, 6612, is the exact gematria value of a completely different verse, way over in the Old Testament book of Zechariah, a verse that's considered prophetically significant. And that's not all. They also look at the average. So you take 6612, you cut it in half, you get 3306. And here's the connection they make. The report points out that this number is the exact product you get when you multiply the Hebrew ordinal values for Jesus, which is 58, by the Messiah, which is 57. 58 times 57 equals 3306. And from there, the report just details this whole cascade of other claimed patterns linking key theological names and phrases across both the Old and New Testaments. Let's just run through a couple of quick examples. Okay, so here we have one of these central declarations of the Christian faith. Jesus is the Christ, shown here in the original Greek. In Greek, its numerical value adds up to 3003. Now, the significance, according to the report, is that this is the very same value as the first 8 words of Genesis in the original Hebrew. They present this as a kind of mathematical bridge connecting the very beginning of the Old Testament to a central claim of the New. Let's take another really powerful phrase, this time from the book of Revelation in the New Testament. Worthy is the Lamb that was slain. Its value in Greek is 2,701, and that number should definitely sound familiar by now. It is the exact same value as the Hebrew for Genesis 1:1. This is presented as a profound cross-language connection between the creation of the world and this statement about redemption. And the analysis goes even deeper than this. The report details patterns that are way more complex than just adding things up, using pretty advanced mathematical ideas like prime numbers. But the core idea is always the same, to show that key names and phrases are mathematically linked in ways that they argue are just too intricate to be an accident. So, what are we supposed to take away from all of this? What do the people who perform this kind of super detailed analysis actually believe it all means? To understand their goal, let's just look at their mission in their own words, straight from the report. They say they aim to explore what they see as highly improbable patterns and then try to figure out their theological meaning using a systematic, methodical approach. But really, when you boil it all down, it comes to this. For the people who believe in this, it is not just a numbers game. The core claim is that the sheer complexity of these patterns, stretching across 2 different languages and thousands of years, is statistically impossible to explain by just chance or by human design. They believe it's a kind of mathematical signature of divine authorship. And that leaves us right here with the ultimate question. Are these deeply meaningful patterns that were intentionally woven into the very fabric of Scripture? Or are they elaborate, really intriguing coincidences that just sort of appear when you apply complex math to a vast and ancient text? It's a fascinating puzzle to think about.